Good morning, good evening, good afternoon from where I am here currently in Daegu, South Korea, to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Contessa's Medieval Sewing Party. And today it's actually going to be a finger loop braiding party because I am going to be practicing a braid that I'm going to need to make a nureta. That's that 15th century Italian hairnet that you see on certain ladies towards the end of the 15th century. And I'm going to actually decided I'm going to do a 7-bow braid to create the framing bands, the bigger, broader bands. I tried the 5-loop braid and it just didn't work. So first thing we need to do is get set up with our loops. But as always, if you're out there listening, please let me know if you can actually hear me. So first thing I need to do to get started is set up my loops. And I'm going to be doing a test braid first. I have my final loops already set up, made out of my nice golden silk thread, embroidery thread. The cats have already attacked the loops. In fact, I don't think I'd had the loops out, and they're all here right now, of course. I start streaming and the cats all come calling because they know if they I will give them food. What the heck is going on? Turning itself off. That makes no sense. It should absolutely be. That's interesting. My screen has decided it should turn itself off. That's okay. Apologize for that. Okay, we should be back. Fantastic. Jimmy, good to see you. Good to see you, Jimmy, or last from the past. I guess not Jimmy, last from the past. Yeah, I've decided to try a different live time slot here. So this hopefully will allow other people, different people to participate. I'm going to be gone actually in the US for a couple of weeks, for 4 weeks. I'm going to be back in the US. So things will definitely be happening at different times any case. I'm going to be doing a ton of live streaming. Rotate it around. Okay, I'm going to be doing a lot of live streaming from my 2-week living history event where I will be encamped in full 15th century glamour and glamping. So yeah, I am just now warping up, as we say in the finger loop, in the lace making biz, 5 bows or 7 bows for my 7-bow test braid. I used to be able to do this 7-bow braid in my sleep, but I haven't done one in years. So I want to refresh my memory on cheap yarn before I do it. No, gosh darn it. No. Ah! You see what I meant about the cat? He literally just grabbed the ball and ran away with it, the ball of yarn, and it ran off. Yeah. They were literally all passed out just 10 minutes ago, passed out on my mosquito net on the bed. And yes, you heard me right, not under the mosquito net, on the mosquito net. I thought, oh, this is great. They're going to sleep through this live stream. Nope. They knew I was about to do a live stream and they came out to mess around with me. Okay, so this 7-loop bow or 7-bow lace is actually not terribly hard. It only has about 8 steps, which, as some of you may know, is not many for a braid. And I just have to figure out what scissors are. Seriously, kitties, go play in any other room in the apartment. I mean, really, goodness gracious. Yeah, it's really hard to find a time that works for everyone because especially when I'm in Asia, and nighttime is not, I'm waking up now naturally, whether I have gotten enough sleep or not at 4 a.m., which means that I'm definitely not awake enough at 9 p.m. my time to do a live stream, which is kind of about the only time, or even 10 p.m., which would be the only time that would work for pretty much everyone on the globe. And of course, as you can imagine, these live streams are high energy, not low energy. So that means that I have to be, pretty on, pretty awake, pretty cognizant, pretty conscious for them. Yeah. Okay. So what's everyone working on this evening? Do you have any projects you've got in the works? I've got a whole bunch of projects cut out and prepared and ready to finish at this upcoming living history event. By the way, if I get really shiny, that's because the monsoon rains ended in the middle of the night following massive floods down by the river. And it's now hot and humid. So I'm just going to be glistening. There is no air conditioning in this room in the apartment. So you're just going to have to accept that I'm going to glow, and possibly glow in a mobile fashion as the sweat pull beads and runs down my visage. So I need to make my anchor. So now I have my loops, my boas, as they are called in 15th century English. Kitties, why? I have, let's see, today cut out the rest of the pieces of a new camicia for my condottiero. Camicia is the linen undershirt that was worn by both men and women in Italy basically up until the early 20th century, and then other things came along. And I've actually just posted a short video on that for anyone who wants to see the very special and unique take on the layout for such a shirt, because it has to actually have a collar. And I also was working on cutting out my new not a hennin. I've been taking pictures to document that process. There will not be a vlog on it though, so don't get your hopes up on that. But I have been copiously taking pictures of the process, and I just finished literally taking a razor and cutting out the vellum. That's right, vellum, goatskin vellum. And I managed to not cut myself. Go me. Very proud of myself for not ending up having to go to the emergency room and do this live stream while waiting to be seen and stitched back up or glued back together by someone. And what on earth happened here? I don't know. And I also laid and cut out, I've actually started sewing my own new camicia, which I have also posted about. I posted a short video on that explaining how the pieces go together. And yeah, I've got a whole bunch of, smaller accessory related things to put together, hopefully get done before I actually leave Penzik. That'd be great. We'll see if that actually happens. It's a goal. I try not to get overly ambitious this year. Nearly all Penziks I try to actually start and finish an entire gown within the 14 days of the event. But when you're hand sewing everything and teaching hours of dance a day, that's just not going to happen. Okay, let me just move this closer so that I can actually be in frame for this. And unfortunately, yes, the tapestry, the hooks that were holding the tapestry, the adhesive gave out on them. And unfortunately, I am really not allowed to just put nails in this wall to hang it up. So I've tried to angle the camera so you can see the part that's still hanging, but it's not cooperating entirely the way and I don't have time to focus on going out and getting new ones because I still have to pack for this 2-week medievalist event in hot summer lake weather. So I don't have time to go out and do shopping for supplies. Yeah. Making a new apron dress tonight, and I'm starting a new brocaded band. Ha! Ha ha. Oh wait, sorry, I wasn't laughing at you. The brocaded band made me laugh because I actually need a brocaded band to make a new fillet for my not a hennin. That band that goes around the head and has the little loop in front, to which the not a hennin is pinned. Yeah, I want to purchase a nice brocaded silk band for that, because if you look at, there's multiple portraits, depictions of young ladies who are wearing just the band with their hair in a ponytail, and it's very clear if you look at that it's a nice brocaded band of some kind of narrowware, whether tablet woven or otherwise. It's definitely narrowware. So yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So for this bow of 7 loops, actually you end up having to do double loops on several fingers, and it's all about manipulating the loops from going through double sets of loops. So it's actually not an easy braid in terms of the technical performance. It's relatively simple in terms of once you get the pattern down, you should be fine. And I put the book over here. What last from the past, your apron dress, are you Are you exploring any new ideas or theories about that? You know, apron dresses are one of those fantastically open to interpretation garments because there is so little visual evidence, and the few textiles that have survived for apron dresses, at least in the Scandinavia region, are like pieces this big. So you can really explore some what I honestly some reasonably conjectural creativity in terms of how it's constructed. Let me see. And they're so gorgeous. I have a beautiful burgundy silk. Oh, nice, nice. Okay, so I've got my loop set up. Do. So the first thing we do, A right goes through B and C to take the inner loop of B left reversed. The nice thing about this braid that I'm about to do is that there's only one reversal the whole time and everything else is unreversed. So you just have to remember that. Okay, so let me move my little book stand a little closer. Yeah, it's been about, I don't know, 10 years since I last did a 7 loop braid. Yeah, probably 10 years. So this refresher is much needed. Much needed. Okay, so we go through B and C on the right hand to grab reversed loop B inner on the left hand, pull out. Okay, then I grab that and pull it across. Fantastic. Unreversed through that, migrate down, tighten, go through, and then step 5 is unreversed. Right, okay. Unreversed, come across, like that, go like that, go like that, go like, okay, it's coming back to me now. Are you making a flat or a round braid? So this is a flat braid. And the wonderful thing about this 7 loop braid, this is a broad lace of 7 loops. The wonderful thing about the broad braid is that you can easily turn it into a round braid just by reversing it in a second spot, rather than reversing it in only the one spot. The key is that you have to not get talking as I've been doing and forget that it's only on one hand where you need to do the reversal. And in fact, just need to. If you do the reversal on both hands, then you end up with a round braid of 7 loops, which is not what I want. I definitely want a flat one. Oh yeah, okay, there we go. It's amazing how much easier it is to do this on this thick yarn. Yeah, I'm playing with some fines from Burka and following all the seam treatments I can. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's what I always tell people is that even if you only have a 2 by 2 inch of fabric, if it has a seam, you can learn so much from that 2 by 2 inch piece of fabric. Really, it's amazing how much you can learn from that tiny little remnant. And it's not definitely not to be taken for granted when you have, I mean, thank God for those the tortoise brooches, tortoise shell brooches, right? Because they really actually protected just enough textiles so that we have some inkling of at least, you know, the fabrics from that era, and sometimes even the techniques. Like there's that one turtle, that one, oh shoot, no, that Rachel no biscuit. There's that one turtle shell that has the pleated linen under it. Like that's tantalizing with those tiny plates. You know what I'm talking about? Like that's a really fascinating glimpse into a sophisticated level of tailoring and clothing creation. I think definitely it is worth valuing those tiny little scraps. Of course, I do hope that someday we'll find a bog body of a woman. Be nice, right? Maybe not so nice for her technically, but yeah, a bog body of a woman who has been preserved thanks to the bog, and therefore, you know, we can actually see her clothes because we have so many good finds for men's clothes from the second half of the first millennium. It'd be nice if we could have a nice trove like that for women's garments as well in sort of first millennium Scandinavia. Yeah, and they found so much in such a small space. Yeah. So last, you say you've gotten to examine some of the finds. Did you actually like you actually did which museums did you get to go to? Bisbee or Burqa museum with a lot of the Burqa finds? That's pretty cool. I'm about to get to go and examine a bunch of medieval Korean finds this winter, and I'm just so excited about that. Seeing if I can get to a mindless place for this finger loop braiding, this particular technique. Now, also, welcome to those of you just joining us. Welcome to my medieval sewing party. If you have any questions about medieval material culture, medieval fashion, medieval dance, medieval food, go ahead and pop them in the live chat. This is a sewing party, and it's a chance to just chat about some fun, geeky, historical stuff while we get creative. And what is everyone else working on this evening? I am working on refreshing my memory on a broad lace of 7 bows, as it's called, as the basis for a 15th century Italian greta. And the interesting thing about the finger loop braiding is that the only instructions we have actually come from England in the first half of the 15th century. But we have evidence of the technique of finger loop braiding all over Europe from ancient times. I mean, from the Iron Age going forward. So even though in Italy we don't have, any instructions for them, we've got plenty of pieces of finger loop braiding, decorating pouches, in reliquaries, protected in sealed documents. And then if you start looking at the portraits of 15th century women, if you look at their necklines, especially the portraits from the second half of maybe not the second half, all of the 14th century, now that I think about it, look at the neckline of their gamore, and you're going to actually start seeing finger loop braided patterns around the neckline that are exactly described in detailed instructions in the English tutorial manuals on finger loop braiding, on lace making, as it was called back then. So let's see. I was doing a course on conservation techniques at the National Conservation Society in Denmark. Ah, that is so awesome. Oh my God, what a dream. What a dream. Conservation techniques. I wish, they say that youth is wasted on the young, and the more I get further from my so-called youth, the more I agree with that. I wish I'd even known that that was a thing when I was at university 25 years ago, right? I would have taken a completely different tack on my college education. How wonderful to get to learn historic textile conservation. The dream. You're living the dream. You're living my dream. Wait, hold on a minute. I think I missed an important hello. Hold on a minute. Let me just scroll back through the chat. Pepperminty, you made it. Mindy Green, is this a kind of knitting? What I'm doing is called finger loop braiding modernly. In the 15th century, this was called lace making, because this is actually how laces were made. And that's where the term lace originally meant. It referred to these narrow wears that were used to lace up a garment. And so it's not knitting at all. I guess, well, I don't know. It depends on how you define knitting, I guess. But it's more like a braiding technique for certain, I think. There's no needles. It's one of the benefits of this technique is that it requires no tools. So you just need a place to which to anchor your yarn or thread, and you can use your toe for that, actually. You need scissors to cut, and then that's it. So yeah. And the reason we call what we now call lace is actually bobbin lace. And the reason it started to be called lace is because the original bobbin lace was actually much closer to the kinds of laces you could make with this finger braiding technique, this finger loop braiding technique. And so when bobbin lace was basically more or less, it seems to have just been invented as a way to be able to do even more intricate braids than you could do with just your fingers. at the end of the 15th century. And so the technique, they just called it lace making because it still was a kind of lace making the way they'd been doing with their fingers for all those centuries. And then eventually the lace, the what became known as bobbin lace, they were able to make it such elaborate, amazing patterns, and that became the fashion for decorating your clothing, that the default understanding of the term lace in English eventually became what is actually just bobbin lace. And then the finger loop braiding completely vanished, I think, by, I don't know, I feel like by the 18th century it was pretty much more or less a dead technique, certainly not being commonly practiced by the aristocracy anymore. Whereas in the 15th century, what I'm doing here, this so-called lace making, finger loop braiding, was absolutely still practiced by ladies of the aristocracy and other classes of society as well. Now, in a minute, let me just get to a place where I can stop, and then I'm going to just check the chat. But yeah, this is coming along well. Apparently my fingers remember how to do this, and you can tell the spots where I got distracted by talking to you all. Let me go chat with you and get distracted again. Let me see. I actually got to see who. I hate this. I actually get to see a super interesting find. Oh, that's very cool. Very cool. Good Lord, isn't all that fabric cumbersome for dexterity needed to perform handiwork? You look amazing. Many blessings. Thank you, Matthew. No, actually, because I learned to do this technique in all this fabric, and actually this might surprise some of you to hear this. This is my super casual, not very much clothing ensemble. But because I learned to do these handicrafts in such layers, and I learned to dance in these clothes and cook in these clothes, I mean, do historical cooking in these clothes, it's no problem. Doesn't slow me down in the least. I think modern people are just so accustomed generally to wearing almost nothing by medieval standards that even the least little bit of fabric on their body seems confounding. But I've been doing medieval living history for so long that it doesn't bother me. That's also why I can wear historical Korean garments that drag on the ground, and move around in them I can glide across the floor with no problem. And meanwhile, Koreans are asking me, isn't that really inconvenient? Isn't it uncomfortable? Don't you wish you could just wear a pair of pants or shorts? Like, absolutely not. No shorts for me, thank you. I'm good. Okay, hold on a minute. Let me get back to some spots. I think it's amazing how a thread becomes a blanket. Yeah, I mean, knitting is a kind of alchemy, I'm feeling medieval, peeling vegetables for 20 people. Yeah, that's definitely medieval. The loom is absolutely a kind of computer. Yeah, when it's done, and it's going to be done really shortly, I will show you what the result is. Absolutely, Mindy. This was a tester piece. This was just some cheap yarn that we got at Goodwill or whatever. So I specifically chose something that I don't care really what happens to it, and it will be done really shortly, and then I will cut it free and show you what it is. No problem. I have on my YouTube channel a full tutorial, a 20-minute tutorial on the basics of lace making like this. It's a beautiful, makes a beautiful piece of narrow-wear that looks lovely as trim, or can be used to lace up a gown or a coat or whatever. And it is called a green dorge, and the tutorial breaks it down very basically from the very basic steps of how to hold your hands and how to do the exchanges, and then walks you through it step by step until you get a finished braid. So if you're interested in trying it for yourself in a very cleanly, nicely edited video, go to my YouTube channel, The Creative Contessa, and look up finger loop braiding, and look specifically under the videos and not the shorts or the lives. And then you'll see, I think it's called Braiding Beautifully, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, the loom is absolutely a kind of computer. And if you see the kinds of looms that that you need in order to make brocaded fabrics, oh boy. It is an astounding composition. It really is. Super, yeah, I have nothing but admiration for whoever it is who designed the looms that can make brocades and damasks. Really, it's kind of incredible. I think I got lost in my got talking. It's one of the reasons I don't do this finger loop braiding so often as a live stream anymore, because I realized I get talking and then I get thinking about what I'm going to say to you and how I'm going to answer your questions. And then I get lost in what I'm doing. And then I end up with something that's not quite right. Like this one is definitely full of mistakes. I know what the mistakes were though, because I can see my fingers making the mistakes as they're making them. So that's fun. This is the only reverse right there. No, bad fingers, no biscuit. Yeah, my fingers keep trying to do a reversal where there isn't supposed to be one. There we go. No reverse. Good job, fingers. Okay, let me pause and see what comments I may have missed. Da, ba, da. Being in the army, we get used to working in full kit, so I get what you're saying. Yep, you definitely would then. Do they still teach marching in the army? They do in the US Army. um, I mean, at least, well, I can't, they were teaching it anyway. I don't, they teach it in basic. I can't speak for, the average. You don't get to do much marching anymore, really. That's why I can't weave and talk with anyone. Yeah, yeah, it's so true. Oh, wow. Do I even have the right number of loops anymore? I'm just going to casually pull this one up like it's supposed to be there, and whatever. It's a practice piece. I don't care. So some handy things you can do with these practice pieces of finger loop braids, and always, I always recommend when you're learning to do a new skill that's textile related, don't use the most expensive authentic material you can find. Instead, get something cheap, like cheap yarn from Goodwill. Also, I like that because then you're using materials that are already in the world rather than causing new materials to be produced. And then we'll practice on that cheaper material. And for finger loop braiding, the big yarn is where you want to start. Don't start with fine thread. You're going to hate yourself because you'll get blisters. So start building those blisters using a nice softer yarn. And then once you're done, the practice piece you have can be used for any number of things. I use them as hair ties, for instance. Oh, wow. I'm definitely completely in the wrong place now. Great. I use them as hair ties, for instance. I use them as bookmarks. I use them to tie bags of food shut once they've been opened, like if it's chips or dried fruit or flour or any kind of cooking supplies. Instead of a rubber band, I just use my finger loop braid samples, and they do just as good a job of a rubber band as a rubber band, if not better, because they don't snap like rubber bands do. So there's lots of things you can actually use these samplers for. I have a whole bag of samplers, a pouch of samplers that actually goes with me to living history events, so that if I have an emergency lace need, then I have emergency lace supplies with me. And I use them for hanging, like if I'm in my pavilion, which you'll get to see if you watch my live stream on setting up my pavilion in about a week. You'll get to see how I will actually use my finger loop braid samples to like hang tapestries from the spokes of my pavilion. Use them to tie back the walls if I want the walls to be opened a little bit further. Oh yeah, I can feel this sweat running down my face. It's super humid right now. This is what happens when it doesn't rain during monsoon season. It just gets amazingly humid. If my hair were down, it would be pure Shirley Temple curls. Oh, goodness. Okay. I'm almost to the point where I cannot really go any further because my fingers don't really fit in through the laces. Okay. This is a sample anyway. So I'll just go ahead and cut it off and show you. So with finger loop braids, for those who don't know, there's a couple of things, or those who even do know and wonder, don't know why this is migrated that way. That's fascinating. For those who do know and wonder, often it's almost impossible to maintain the same amount of tension at the beginning as at the end And that's okay because that's how they were in the Middle Ages. The extant, we have a couple of extant ones that we have in their entirety, beginning to end. And you can actually see, I think the Museum of London actually laid it out so that you could see the beginning and the end next to each other. And you can very clearly see that the end, one end is tighter than the other. And that's okay. Medieval people did not expect for things to be machine made perfect. They just didn't because they didn't have that, right? So don't expect that to happen. You can minimize some of the difference, but it's not going to be perfect and it shouldn't be. Then the other thing you need to know is that often you're going to have to iron it to actually make it lay flat because of the way that the loops are manipulated and the kind of tension. It kind of will naturally try to fold itself in half. No problem, just iron it flat. Okay, so I am now manually ironing it flat with my fingers, and I can see all the spots where I lost concentration and just did all reversals all the time and made a round lace instead of a flat lace, or a broad lace as they're called, a broad lace of 7 boas. Okay, so this is what it looks like. That's the back, that's the front, and ironing it will make it much, much broader and flatter, right? So let me see. I got so many coats and suits from Goodwill that didn't fit, but they did when I went to the seamstress. I try to tell women this trick. Oh, Matthew, 100%. Yeah, I love upcycling, recycling, repurposing, rejuvenating secondhand garments because I'll be honest. Let's just be honest for a moment, everyone. Real talk. Garments that are made now, I'm doing the bows because it's a little warm to have it keep it tied. Undoing the bows. Clothes that are made now are made cheaply. They're made low quality materials. You'll be lucky if you can actually get or obtain natural fibers, clothes made of natural fibers without crappy petrochemical synthetics in them. So yeah, older garments, especially 40 years and longer at this point, older, they're made of quality materials. So if you get a garment that doesn't fit you, as long as it's bigger than you are, you can get it tailored down to you, and it'll be cheaper than having something custom tailor made out of quality materials. Yeah, absolutely. I 100% support that. And remember, if you're buying garments that you then want to have fitted tailored to you, you want it to fit in your shoulders. Everything else can be big and baggy, no problem. As long as it fits in your shoulders, you can make the rest fit you. Or in the case of pants, it needs to fit your hips. It doesn't need to fit your waist, it needs to fit your hips. It can be too big in the waist, no problem. You can get it altered to be altered down to your size. So you want whatever garment you buy, it should fit the biggest part of the body of your body that of the part of the body that is being covered by that garment. Yeah. Yeah. Great for mentioning that. That talking is just the weaving of words. Oh, Matthew, you're not throwing me off. It's okay. It's no problem. Okay, question. Have you tried beating down your braid with your foot for the first half? Yes. Yep, I do, but this was too short for that. This one is fine. And actually this one, because it's so short, the tension was pretty even throughout. So actually the beginning and the end are pretty similar. Yeah, no, when I do with, in fact, I have a video showing me doing finger loop braiding on a 7th century reconstructed bridge, beautiful covered palace bridge in Korea, wearing 18th century Korean clothing. You can see me actually doing the foot technique. Oh, I love Pilates, what I call Pilates finger loop braiding. I don't know why this keeps rotating around like that. It's really annoying. Yeah, I absolutely do. And when I have really long loops, I do that, and probably I'll do that on this one. And then but then what you end up really tight at the end, and in the middle, you don't get quite the same tension anyway. Yeah, I definitely use my foot to beat down the pattern, 100%, especially on the long ones. Or not Matthew, sorry, last from the past. Elizabeth, one of my apprentices. So lovely to see you here. Isn't blue a rare pigment? Yes, blue is a very rare pigment. Blue in the Middle Ages was made from lapis lazuli. That's why it was called ultramarine, outre-mer, because it came from overseas. Lapis lazuli doesn't just come from overseas, it comes from over deserts and over mountains. It comes from Afghanistan. So in the Middle Ages, lapis lazuli was the most expensive pigment, which is why you start seeing all of this blue that crops up in artwork. It's conspicuous consumption. Literally, the patron would say, look, I want you to make this as expensively as possible so that I can be conspicuously consumptive. There's no Mercedes, there's no Beamers in this era. So instead they have art. And the patron says, make everything blue. And the artist says, but columns aren't usually blue, sir. No, 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 make the columns blue. Okay, what about the clothes? Everyone is wearing blue. Blue. I want everyone in blue. Okay, well, what about the trees? They should be blue too. Like, I'm literally describing a book of hours facsimile I have from the 15th century. I think it's the Visconti hours, actually, where every page is just a riot of blue, blue in different shapes. And that's because lapis lazuli was the most expensive pigment of them all, hands down. Yeah, good question. Red is not from, red could be from iron, but the expensive red pigments were from kermes, which is the European relative of cochineal. So also very expensive. You could also get red from madder, actually, is another way. But the really vibrant reds came from ground up kermes. Yeah, and you wouldn't want, so they kind of acknowledged that iron oxide was not a great pigment because it was destructive, right? It's actually basically rust. Let's see, missed the start, been out at the garden. Oh, that's okay. Oh yes, Pepperminty, if you can get the bots, that would be great. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so got my 7 bow down. I am not going to, I did set up for it, but I'm not going to yet apply that to the very fine silk braid, because I know if I chat with you guys, I'm going to end up with all kinds of mistakes, and I want this to be as perfect as possible for my new So I'm going to do another 7-loop braid for practice. Yeah. So what is everyone working on this evening? Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you double tap the screen, that will actually automatically engender a like, as it were. I've got so many things on my platter to make right now. Elizabeth, I am so no, don't do that. Bad Contessa, no biscuit. You know, the cats will come running. Nobby's eyes just opened up because the ball of yarn hit the floor. Yeah, I'm going to miss you so much this year, Elizabeth. Really, it's so sad. But I totally encourage you not to attend. 100%. Don't make that trip. It's not worth it. Okay. Yeah, I've got the pieces for my new Not a Hennin cutout. And if anyone is wondering why I'm calling it Not a Hennin, that's because hennin is not a medieval term. It's a term the Victorians encountered in one sermon by a priest from the 1410s, the 14 teens, before the hennin even existed. And it's not even clear that it's a word for the headdress that the women are wearing. It seems to be more that it's actually a slur that the boys are calling at women who are wearing the veiled headdresses that went over the 2 buns on the sides of their heads in this era, with the wires holding up the veils. It's got nothing to do with the conical steeple-shaped headdress that people now call a hennin. So I call it not a hennin because it's not. And it seems that in the 15th century English of the time, it was called a mitre, actually, or a horn, or a turret. Turret is another word I've seen, a turret, which makes sense if you think about it. It definitely looks like a turret. And then in French, it was actually called an haut à tour, or a corne, grande corne. Seems to be the 2 words that crop up that could possibly be that garment. But the word hennin, literally, o hennin, is the quote, what the boys are supposed to call as they chase after these women in the 14 teens and pluck off their headdresses to shame them for being so consumptive of materials. So it's most likely not even a term for the thing they're wearing. It's an insult, a slur cast at them. And it only appears the once. I've done digital searches of hundreds of pages of 15th century texts in French and Dutch and English, and I've never been able to find that word in any of them. So I thought a mitre was just for a bishop's hat. Nope. It does not, in the 15th century, it does not have a connotation of a religious headdress, actually, at all, I don't think. If you look up, go do yourself a favor, go and look up the word miter in the Middle English Dictionary, that is the online Middle English Dictionary that is maintained by the University of Michigan. Thank you, U Michigan. You are awesome. And if you look up miter, you're going to see, it'll actually provide you with quotes and you can actually see its use. So it wasn't just a religious headdress, it was a secular one as well. But there's another term that was more commonly used in that era for the bishop's headdress, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Something else. I just encountered this recently. Yeah. No, Elizabeth, you shouldn't come to Penzic this year. Don't. This is no. Maybe in 3 years, you might want to consider it again. Yeah. Who knows what the immediate future will bring, but it's not looking good. So maybe 3 years. I will prepare for a small ball event in October. Oh, nice. What's the event, Elizabeth? Is it an event I'm familiar with, or is it a new event? That's pretty awesome. Do you have live music for it? Matthew says, no witches, right? This was just public shame the boys did to girls. So no, it had nothing to do with witches. No, nothing about witchcraft. And it's not even boys to girls. So what it is this priest actually says, Etienne, the name was Etienne de something. I don't remember what his last name is. So what this priest says is, he, in this sermon, this fiery sermon about the excesses of clothing in his era, right? And the women who are wearing these headdresses that are just with these veils that are so expensive and so extravagant. And what he says is, and it's not girls, it's women. He says it should be boys, like young, like you're talking like 10-year-old bratty boys, like 6 to 10 is what he's encouraging them to go and be soldiers of social justice or whatever. And he says that they should chase the boys, and it's really garçons, young boys, should chase after the women, les dames, and calling after them, oh ena, and should pluck the headdresses from their brow. And he doesn't use the word hennin when he talks about plucking. He uses the word headdress. I forget what the French word is offhand, but it's not, he doesn't talk about doing anything to the hennin. He talks about that the boys should call after them, oh ena, oh ena. And there's one theory that, because this was actually kind of the Low Countries, this is Burgundy, there's one theory that what he's actually talking about is hennink, which is apparently a 15th century Dutch word that means phallus, slang word for penis, right? Hopefully my channel doesn't get banned by YouTube for just having uttered that word. But so apparently it could possibly be, he's supposed to be making some kind of phallic reference, but that doesn't make sense for the kinds of headdresses that they were actually wearing in the 14 teens. So I think that's someone having misidentified the kind of headdress that this preacher is actually lambasting. Because of course, it's the Victorians who came up with this theory, and the Victorians just assumed that, the pointed steepled headdress that they're wearing in the second half of the 15th century, it must be exactly the same in the 1410s. And as we all know, that just ain't true. Fashion evolved so quickly in the 15th century that, I can easily look, you could show me a picture from any decade of the 15th century in France or Italy or England, and I could tell you exactly the decade from which that picture comes, because it's that distinctive. It's this weird myth out there that, before the modern era, fashion stayed the same for basically hundreds of years and no one changed anything. And that's just absolutely not true. Now, part of that confusion could come from the fact that a lot of the terminology doesn't necessarily evolve. And that's just because language can be slow to catch up. And language can also be lazy. There's no point in inventing a new word if the words you have are sufficient to describe the thing you need to describe. I'm a professional linguist, I know. So yeah, fashions changed quickly, and from decade to decade by the 15th century, easily. Which doesn't mean, by the way, there's no fast fashion though, and I definitely don't mean that. But what that means is that in your wardrobe, as a lady, for instance, you would absolutely have garments that were from the last decade or the decade before that, and you'd probably wear them. You wouldn't just wear the latest fashions, but once a year or so, as a noblewoman, you would probably get a new gown or two that reflects the latest fashion. And we know this because in inventories, you see mentions of old gown in good condition or old gown, very worn out. So we know for a fact that they kept these things. And we can tell by the expense accounts how often they got new ones. And it's even for a noblewoman, it's not necessarily as often as you would think. Queens and princesses, they get things much more often. Ladies in waiting, the damsels of the queens, they got things once a year from the queen as part of their remuneration package. And sometimes they would also get gifts of fabric, which they could then have fashioned into other garments if they could afford the tailor's bills. Ooh, darn it. Okay, hold on a minute. I'm going to pop over to the chat here in a moment. Okay, I'm at a stopping point. Okay, let's see. Is that why boys pull the hair off of girls in the schoolyard? Sounds familiar to schoolyard shenanigans. Oh, well, Automod doesn't like that word. Yeah, I bet not. Yeah. I cheated. Cancel. Nice. Hold on a minute. Just going through the, let me see, I missed something. It's, Festivalo de Caderas in the Barony of Gothic. I hope I will have live music, but I need to check if he's coming. Men's suits haven't changed in over a century. Us men look all the same. Women are like unique. Yeah, but women's fashions haven't really changed that drastically either. I mean, I feel sorry for you men folk, right? The modern options, the standard readily available options for men's clothing these days it is sad. 100% tragic. And you're right, the basic cut of men's suits hasn't changed in 150 years, 160 years. I mean, the basic cut, basically you can date back to the 1850s, right? It's tragic. And it just kind of petrified. And it's even more tragic how not only have the lines not really changed, but now you can't even have bright colors. Like it has to be all these suffuse blues and browns and blacks and grays. And if you dare wear actual color, then people look at you askance like you've gone mad. I mean, that's just tragic, considering how men's clothing used to be just as ornate and shiny and glittery and brightly colored as women's, in some cases, if not more so. I've gradually pulled this chair towards me. I have to push it back. Yeah, welcome to my medieval sewing party for those just joining. I am the creative Contessa. Some of you know me as the Contessa. Some of you know me as Mistress or Magistra. Not Mistress, but Magistra. Some of you know me as Rachel. And I am working on practicing. I'm getting back into my muscle memory, the lace of 7 bows from from 2 different 15th century braiding manuals, actually. And I'm just trying to not get too lost in talking with you all while I do this. But it's good practice. I call this learning to braid under battlefield conditions, because it means that eventually I will just train myself to be able to smoothly talk with you all and do braiding. Of course, if we were just chatting, like straight up chatting, and I could hear your words instead of having to read them, it would be a different thing. It's having to stop and actually read the chat that's, putting little flaws into my lace, as it's called in the 15th century. But that's okay. It's worth it. Let's see. Were accountants that big of a deal back in the day? I've heard you refer to ledgers whilst you share some knowledge. Oh yeah, accountants were a very big deal back in the day. Very important. And it's of course whether it's not so much that it was that I haven't found reference to a so-called accountant, but the steward. Absolutely. So there's the Office of the Exchequer, right? It depends on the level of government or the size of the household that you're talking about. France had an exchequer, England had an Office of the Exchequer, Scotland had an Office of the Exchequer. So I guess in that sense, those are the accountants to which you're referring. They were extremely important. Those ledgers were maintained and balanced and recorded in archives. So yeah, very important to monitor the income and expenses of a household. Also very important to make sure that embezzlement wasn't happening. There's actually court records about cases of embezzlement and fraud in people being perpetrated by people who are supposed to be in charge of the accounts of various households. So yeah, massively important. You know, the more your economy becomes money based instead of barter based, the more important it is to keep track of the flow of the money. So yeah, very important. And thankfully, a lot of them have survived, not as evenly as one might like. You know, fires and war and bombs being dropped, and fires and war and more bombs being dropped tends to, oh, and the occasional revolution where, you know, the revolutionaries set shit on fire just because. See commentary on why I hate the French Revolution. um, and then lightning, like there's just random lightning strikes sometimes that will set historical buildings on fire. And often, what's the worst part is that often revolutionaries don't even necessarily intentionally burn down archival record offices. It just kind of happens, you know, in the moment. They get a little carried away. Follow the money takes on a new meaning. Yeah, absolutely. That gets into the template, right? that that gets into the template, right? And the Vatican. Yeah, I mean, in some cities, some towns are just much better at recording, keeping records. One of the reasons there's so much scholarship on Florence is not just because Florence actually plays a major role in the development of Western history, not just not just Italian history, but the history of the world. But also because Florence has extremely meticulously kept records in great detail, multiple levels of society, not just the aristocratic or patrician class. So we can really, it's easy to do scholarship, to study medieval and Renaissance life in Florence because of all of these fantastic records that have in fact survived. So we can get an idea of not just how the Medici lived, but how the clients of the Medici lived, how their servants lived, how peasants lived, how they maintained their households, what kind of wills they had, how what kind of dowries they kept for their, you know, saved up for their daughters, thanks to the Monte de, there was a, darn it, I forget what it was called, the Monte de something else. It was basically a mutual fund for dowries, so that, you know, a father could pay into it, or a mother, a family could pay into it, and it would actually accrue interest. It would grow over time, and then when it was time for the daughter to get married, she would have a nice dowry. And that wasn't just for the patricians; it was in fact aimed at everyone. Hence the, you know, joy of interest accruing and the investment actually growing. Fellow Bardici familia, what brought you to Korea? Ah, I am, I am a military spouse, so that brought me to Korea, and I just love it here. It's fantastic. Korea, unfortunately, really falls completely under the radar in terms of travel. No one thinks of Korea as a place to travel to, but it is an amazing country for tourism. It's so well developed. It's got cheap, readily available, safe and clean public transit that moves really quickly from one end of the country to the other. It has historic buildings and palaces that have been rebuilt the same way they were back in 1400 when they were built for the first time. It has all kinds of hands-on cultural and historical experiences that are generally free because Korea invests lots of money into Korean, or to Korean culture and history, to making sure that people experience it and understand it. It's got a fantastic food. It's got great green spaces. And did I mention safe? Really safe, super safe. So really, Korea has so much to offer tourists, and yet it just hasn't, no, people have not quite cottoned on to it. Instead, you know, they'll go to Thailand, they'll go to Vietnam, they'll go to Cambodia, and I've been to all of those places, and they're great. Like, don't get me wrong, but if you can only pick one Asian country, oh boy, I just completely distracted myself. Okay. If you can only pick one Asian country, I would pick Korea, honestly, for many reasons. Also, all the signs are in Korean and English, so you don't have to read Korean, although Korean's a proper alphabet and easy to learn in an hour, and then you can at least read the signs. It's extremely phonetic. Oh, not template, Knights Templar. Okay, that makes much more sense, Matthew. Okay, here is my second little one, and I will be using this sampler. This is a practice piece. I will be using this as a bookmark, no doubt, or as a tie. It's a little bit short to be a tie around a bag or something, but I'll use this as a bookmark. So this is the backside. You can see this is the connecting piece that basically you've got two hands of bows, right? And you're working them through each other. And there's one way in which you can connect the two halves of your loops, the right half and the left half. And that's what that bend is right there. That's the reverse loop taking that actually causes that. Let's see. Banking is where we sold our souls. Interest is a fancy word for debt. Yeah. I was deployed to Mesopotamia, Samarra, Iraq. I wonder if we were there to protect the artifacts. Oh, yeah, I wish. I wish more of those artifacts got the tragic losses of Middle Eastern artifacts over the last 22 or 23 years. And I mean, the Taliban literally went through and destroyed all of those ancient Buddhas. So, I'm not blaming us for that. Yeah. So yeah, this is what happens once I get to know the braid. It goes through really well. At the end, I gave up because I literally just started doing something very random with my fingers. That's okay. That's okay. You have a tutorial for this pattern? I don't have one no, I don't have one up for this pattern. I've got a couple of live streams on my YouTube channel recorded that are some of the early medieval sewing parties I did, and I actually do provide step-by-step instructions for different kinds of braids, but not this one. And then of course there's the tutorial for the green dorge. I do plan though, my plan is after Penzig maybe, I do plan to do a succinct tutorial for every single braid that there is in the 15th century, for which we have instructions. There's 41 of them. Some of them are two-person braids. So I do plan on doing a succinct tutorial for each of them. So stay tuned for that. Yeah. Oh, Library of Alexandria, man. Don't get me started on the burning of libraries. Not just the Library of Alexandria, my friends. The Library of Baghdad. Thank you, Mongols. Go to hell. The archives in Dublin. Thank you, revolutionaries. I know you didn't mean to burn up your entire medieval 700 years of history, but you did. So yeah. Going back to Florence. Oh yeah. Is there a particular festival? Okay. If you're going to go to Florence and you want to hit a festival, then you need to go in June, the Feast of San Giovanni. You're going to see, there's going to be calcio, which is a violent medieval version of rugby/soccer played where it has been played since the Middle Ages in Santa Croce. And you're going to see processions where neighborhoods process their team through the streets in pseudo-Renaissance clothing. It'll be fun. It'll be crazy. It'll be crowded, but it'll be worth it. So if you want to hit a really fun festival in Florence, the Feast of San Giovanni, St. John the Baptist in June. It's usually a 1 to 2 week period for the festivities. Granted, you will be there with everyone else and it will be hot and there will be mosquitoes. Now, if you don't care about being in Florence when there's a festival happening, then I can highly recommend November and I can highly recommend February. I have been there for multiple weeks in both of those seasons. Few tourists, the temperatures are mild, not hot, not cold. So about 15 degrees Celsius or about 61, 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Rains a little bit some days, but it's never like downpourously raining. And there's very few people. So I actually prefer to be there in the November and February timeframe. But if you want to be there during a festival, then the Feast of St. John the Baptist is what you want. Yeah. The green dorge is one of my favorites, and I love all the spiral braids. Oh yeah, man. I also, yeah, the spiral braids are great. So what she's talking about here, these are a couple examples of the spiral braids. This is a lace kondrak, and it's done in 2 colors, so you can see it basically creates a piping effect. Yeah, this is what happens when I'm doing this while talking to people in my live streams. You can see all the mistakes, right? But yeah, it basically creates this cool piping with, if you do it in two colors, then the spiral is in one color and the base is in another. And then this is another of the spirally ones. This one's super cool. This one's really super wonderful if you do it in silk. I don't have any of the silk ones here because if you do it in silk, then it's shiny. It's really awesome. Yeah. Let's see. Checking what I missed here. Okay, great. Oh yeah, great for garters. Yes. Yes. So this is the broad lace of 7 loop, especially if you do it in yarn, a thick yarn is definitely great for garters because I have two garters, a set of garters made out of this. And you can either add, attach buckles to it if you want, or you can just tie it straight up however you want. But we know for a fact that they definitely use finger loop braiding for garters as well, because we have some extant pieces that have survived. And you can see on one end, you can actually see where there was a buckle, a strap end, or a buckle attached to it. And it's of the right width to basically be a garter. So yeah. Yeah, so this one is 8 bows. Yeah, this is 8 bows. And this one is 6 bows. I think the Condrake is 6. I think it's 6. I could count, I guess, actually. Now that I say that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, lace Condrake is 6. This one, whose name is escaping me at the moment, is this cool spiral one anyway, is 8. So yeah, they're pretty cool. I really like these. They're fun. They're definitely fun. Oh dear. Get the silk out of my hand so the cat doesn't come running for it. Okay, fantastic. So is anyone going to Penzic? If you are going to Penzic, 2-week medievalist fair event thing that is happening in starting next Friday, actually, basically. I am going to be teaching hours upon hours of medieval dance classes. I invite you to attend my red and gold ball and my enchanted picnic. I will be encamped in the Enchanted Grounds in the Belfiore sub-encampment. If you'd like to come and say hello and chat and sew together, I will be there doing all of that. For those of you who can't attend in person, I will be doing plenty of live streaming. I'm gonna live stream my classes. I'm going to live stream setting up camp. We'll definitely be doing some medieval. Definitely be doing medieval sewing party from the beauty of my glamping pavilion. And I will definitely be doing some medieval story time from the vantage point of Penzic. So stay tuned for plenty of immersive medieval fun. I also had a request for a workshop there on how to do immersive medievalism. So immersive reenactment, which is, yes, to a certain degree, a kind of role playing, but there's techniques to it. There's ways to create an immersive atmosphere and avoid modernity and still have your fun and party. So I'll actually be doing a workshop where I will teach you with practical exercises how to speak more eloquently in a more courtly fashion, thereby enhancing everyone's experience. What is this kind of braiding called? Yeah, so I'm working up the bows, as they're called, loops modernly, and it is called modernly. This is called finger loop braiding. This is going to. Modernly, it's called finger loop braiding, but in the medieval period, it was just called lace making because, basically, this is what laces were before we added bobbins to it and made it super complicated. Glamping pavilion. Yep. Do you bring your own tent or camping? I have my own entirely my own setup. It's 15th century glamping for the win. I actually have a tour of my glamping setup on my YouTube channel. If you go and look up medieval glamping or something like that on my YouTube channel, The Creative Contessa, it's about a 10-minute tour. I take you through, tell you about, show you how my bed is put together, my wall hangings, all the things in which all the supply boxes and everything that I use for, storing my toiletries and my supplies. So yeah, you can actually check it out if you don't want to wait another week to see what it looks like. And I hopefully will have an even grander setup this year because I should actually have my entire setup if everything goes according to plan instead of my mini glamping setup. So you might, hopefully you'll get to see something even grander than usual is my sincerest wish. Hold on a minute. Let's see. What is this kind of braiding called? A round of, yeah, thank you. Round chevron. That's it. Yep. The chevron of eight, round chevron of 8 bows. That's correct. Yep. Round chevron of 8 bows. She has servants build her a castle. Yeah, actually, at Fenzik, you can in fact hire what are called minions, freelance gig workers whom you can pay $50 or $100 to come and set up your camp for you. And I have thought about doing that, not because I can't set it up, but because, sometimes I just don't feel like it. Sometimes it would be nice for someone else to set up my rope bed, for someone else to go to the trouble of hammering massive iron stakes into the ground, into sometimes very hard ground. Yeah, but that's okay. No, it's part of the process. It's, you can't really appreciate a good medieval glamping setup unless you sweat your way through it and hit your hand with the hammer at least once. Otherwise, what are you even doing? So I will do it. I will not pay someone to set my stuff up. I will pay someone though to keep camp clean. So yeah, just doing another practice on the lace broad of 7 bows so that I can hopefully get to a place where I can just chat and make a perfect braid without even thinking about it. That's the goal. Yeah. So I'm excited. Hopefully the weather will be better this year. Last year was like the calamitous Penzik. If you go to my Penzik playlist on my YouTube channel, you can see footage of the calamitous rain. I think Penzik 51. If you go to the Penzik 51 playlist, you can see, yeah, the calamitous rain. We had serious flooding last year. Elizabeth was there. She remembers. It got pretty bad, and there was some pretty crazy winds on some days. I'm hoping we have a better weather Penzik this year. I mean, over 2 weeks in Western Pennsylvania in July and August, I certainly expect there will be storms. There will be the occasional windstorm. There will be the occasional tornado warning. It would just be nice if it's not every day. That's all. That's all I'm asking for. Just not every day. Also would be nice if, it's not always hot and humid. If we have some, 20-something degree days with low humidity, that'd be great too. 20-something Celsius centigrade. I'm assuming that most of you are, although I could be wrong. Where is everyone watching from today? Do I have any of my Aussies out there? Or is everyone in Europe? Do I have anyone tuning in either super late or super early from the Americas? Anyone from Africa? It'd be great if we could get some people from Africa. That'd be fun. Penzik tumbleweeds. Rain is better than wind, in my opinion. It depends on the rain. The problem is that at Penzik, you can end up with rain that turns enough rain that turns the ground into quick mud. And I'm not exaggerating. I once almost permanently lost a pair of medieval turn shoes to the quick mud because I stepped and I thought it was more solid than it was, and it wasn't. And I sank up to my knee and I pulled my foot out, and it literally sucked my medieval replica reproduction leather turn shoes into the mud. And I had to go get a shovel and dig them out. So I'm really quite okay if we don't have to do that again. That's okay. South Yorkshire, nice. Suwon, you're up in Suwon. Oh, thank you for joining us. Oh my goodness, fantastic. I'm down here in Daegu. Splendid. Yeah, right. Yeah, that was an amazing. That was a Penzik where for the last 3 days we gave up on shoes. Everyone. I don't mean me and my friends. I mean everyone. We all became bog trotters. Philip, if you're out there, this one's for you. we all just became bog trotters and we all just went around barefoot for the remaining 3 days. And we all had our skirts and our tunics and whatever hiked up around, our hips so they wouldn't get anywhere near the ground. Yeah, we gave up on any nice things. We were all so happy when the final morning dawned and it was sunny and our tents could dry and we could pack up relatively dry and leave. That was pretty bad. I've also been to Penzix where the sky turned green, and even though a tornado was not reported to have touched down, there were certainly plenty of little earth pimple Coleman tents that were flying through the air in a rather circular pattern. So, yeah. Like I said, I think I would probably take wind over the kind of rain that turns everything into quick mud. What I hate are the over 100 heat index with high humidity. Northern PA mountains should have different weather to Richmond, Virginia. Yeah, it should, right? You would think that. I mean, I will say that in general, the weather on the western side of the Allegheny Mountains is nearly always better than the weather on the eastern side. So, if it's heat index of 100 on the western side, it's probably heat index of 110 on the eastern side. So, yeah, you just never know. Last year, the week before Penzig temperatures were in the mid-20s every day, puffy white clouds in the sky, blue skies. And the week after Penzig, temperatures were in the mid-20s every day, puffy white clouds and beautiful blue skies. But the 2 weeks in between those two framing weeks, it was rough. Well, your poor feet, 3-day market without shoes, once, never again. Well, I will admit that the mud that was clay, because it's clay soil out there. So it was, it felt kind of nice. It was squishy and soft. And my feet have probably never been smoother. It was basically like a 3-day foot spa, really. And my calves too. I mean, just really moisturized, supple skin. All calluses just kind of softened away. Oh, Pittsburgh area had nonstop rains in June. Yeah. I'm trying. I am mentally preparing myself. Thankful and fortunately or unfortunately, I'm finally getting to use my full big size pavilion again, but it's been stored in a very dry environment for the last couple of years. And so I'm going to assume, hopefully it hasn't dry rotted, but I'm going to assume that probably the fibers have shrunk, which means the first rain, it's probably going to rain into the tent a little bit because it's cotton canvas. After that first rain, they will swell up and it will be fine. But I actually made this pavilion. It's a big round hub and spoke pavilion. I actually made it myself 20 years ago. Can't believe that stuff. Yeah, made it 20 years ago. And so it has a lot of use under its belt, and the fabric is certainly not the newest. So I'm just hoping that it hasn't dry rotted, hoping it's just dried. I do have a smaller backup pavilion, but it's also not new, and it's also, not exactly in the best condition. I had wanted to I don't have the ability to make one now. And I mean, I can make one. I don't have the facilities to make one now. I don't have the space. So I wasn't able to make a new one in the interim. I kind of wanted to commission a new one, but that just wasn't in the cards this year for reasons. Wasn't in the financial cards. Yeah. Legs and feet dyed a lovely muddy red. Yeah, that quick mud at Penzig. Yeah, especially with my white skin. Yeah, you're not wrong. It's a little orange for a couple of days. See, the wind has no resemblance to a pedicure. I can't argue with that logic. You're not wrong. Not wrong at all. So let's see, what else do I plan on doing this year at Penzig? Oh, Philip from Irish Medieval History will be joining me live during the live streams. I am going to be his avatar at the event. He's basically going to I'm going to show him around, and he's going to point at things he wants me to show him more closely, and I will show him and explain what it is he's seeing. So we're going to do that twice. We're going to do that once during the first week and once during the second week. So if you want to see Philip, who's never been to Penzig or an event like Penzig, Philip from the channel Irish Medieval History. Watch his reaction to everything. He's got that fantastic Irish accent, and he's got such a great sense of humor and such a beautiful sense of wonderment that I think it will be very entertaining. I'm very much looking forward to sharing Penzik with him virtually and to sharing it with those of you who can't actually make it in person. I'm also planning to go around to some of the really cool camps that have really amazing setups and ask if it's okay if I live stream, share their various tips and tricks for setting up an awesome medieval or medieval-ish encampment so you can see. Because for those of you who haven't been to Penzik, there is some amazing Leonardo da Vinci level innovation happening in some of the camps. It's really quite astounding. Ooh, it's beautiful sunset. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm gonna finish this up, and I'm gonna take you guys over and show you the sunset because it's really stunning. We get some amazing sunsets here in Daegu. And this room is kind of west facing, well, west northwest facing anyway, which means you can really see the sunsets best from actually where I am right now. So let me quickly knock this back, and then I'll take you over and show you this beautiful, beautiful sunset. Oh, I think I reversed that loop. Oh, well, I was doing so well. I think this was on target to be a perfect 7-bow lace, but I think in my rush to try to get you to show you that beautiful sunset, also I want to look at the sunset too, but I want to share it with you all as well. It's quite beautiful. Avatar or orator or both. ¿Por qué no los dos? Okay. Yeah. Oh, just one little mistake, and that can be ironed out. Okay, let's go take a look at the sunset. Sorry, it'll be a little bit dizzying. I apologize, everyone. And reverse camera. Okay. Try to get it to you. Yeah, look at that sunset. I know it's because I can't get close enough to actually get, maybe I can. Let me try. See if I can get you guys close enough to actually get you out of the window entirely, and then it might actually do the thing it needs to do. Yeah, look at that beautiful sunset. Ah, just so beautiful. Yeah. What format will you be live streaming at Penzik? I will be, do you mean what platform? If it's a platform, I will be streaming from the usual platforms. Sorry, let me pop this back around. I will be streaming from the usual platforms. Facebook, YouTube, and I'd love to live stream from TikTok, but TikTok has told me I'm not allowed to live stream for whatever reason. Yeah. Let me see. Having a chemise that has been red tipped at the bottom for over 15 years. Yeah. So I once made the mistake of using Penzik water to wash a smock. Penzik water, for those who don't know, this event I'm attending is in Western PA. Western PA has extremely iron-rich soil. That's why it was the steelmaking capital of the world for a long time. And so if you use water that comes from a well in that part of the world, it will be rich in iron, and it will absolutely bond with your fibers, and it will absolutely rust in the air, and it will turn your things orange. So do not use Penzik water for anything involving garments about whose color you care. Also, the iron will actually cause your fabrics to degrade because iron is not good for fibers. It will literally rust them away. It will rot them away. So do not use Penzik water. Spend the money on distilled water. There are water filtration points, and if you can actually get enough water from those water filtration points, then it might be okay. But you're going to get a real medieval experience because you're going to have to haul the water from the well, which is the water point that has a quadruple filtration system. Yeah. Da-da-da. The future looks beautiful. Yeah, that's right. I am your future, everyone, except for my comrade who's in Suwon. My comrade here in Suwon, and any of you Aussies, we're in the present, but the rest of you are in the past. I thought it might have been a fracking thing. No, it predates fracking. Yeah, the fracking thing, they didn't start fracking there until 20 years ago, and it predates that by a long shot. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's from, and the pond that's at Penzic, for those who don't know, that's not a lake, it's a pond, and it was not a nature pond. It was part of the coal mining process back when they were mining coal there as well. So yeah, don't consume anything from that pond. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Okay, here is the third and possibly the best of the 7 bow braids that I have done this evening. Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, and I only have one mistake. And if I were to iron this out, you can't really see the mistake from the backside. See it a little bit, but if I ironed it out, I could actually squish it out so it wouldn't even really be noticeable. Thank the God for linen in this heat wave. Yeah, seriously. Ah, linen is such a wonderful fabric. Yeah, so tip for those of you who are interested in getting into medieval living history. I know it can be tempting to save money on fabric, and I totally understand wanting to save money. So, not a criticism, but don't save money by buying synthetics. It's not a question of authenticity, it's a question of your comfort and safety. One, synthetics don't breathe, you will suffocate. Two, most synthetics are made from petrochemicals. Petrochemicals are splendidly and fantastically flammable, and you will get the nastiest second and third degree chemical burns if those fibers catch on fire, and they will if you're at a living history event that has an encampment, because there's going to be campfires, there's going to be torches, there's going to be lanterns, there's going to be candles on tables, and you will catch on fire if you are wearing petrochemicals. Whereas wool is naturally flame retardant. It will self-extinguish, and linen will also self-extinguish. It will only burn to a point, and it's really easy to put out, and it will not melt, and it will not burn hot. Unlike synthetics that will burn oh so hideously hot. Yep. Oh, good night, Eveline. Thank you for joining us. Uh, Matthew, I'm sorry, I don't know. That's awesome. That really is cool. And they melt to your skin, speaking from experience. Yeah. Blast from the past. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so, when I say, please don't think that I'm being snobby or an authentic snob. I'm not. Linen is what you want, especially the layer against your skin needs to be linen. You can put wool on top of it, honestly. You can put silk on top of it, even in hot and humid weather. I know I've worn this stuff in Thailand, in fact. But the layer against your skin needs to be linen for the evaporative cooling effect. And absolutely do not do the synthetics if you're going to be anywhere near fire, or if you're going to be in hot temperatures. You'll get heat stroke, probably, actually. Yeah. And melting to your skin, very not cool. Very, very not cool. Okay, let's see. It is getting very dark in here, so I'm about to run out of light. But I just wanted to show you all. Ah, right. So the reason that I'm practicing this lace making, as it was called in the 15th century, and if any of you want to know again why, if you missed my explanation on why this is actually what I've just been doing here is called lace making, and it's nothing like what you know as lace, I can explain that again. Just let me know in the live chat if you would like to hear that explanation one more time. But basically, I am making, this is one of those cute little hairnets called a reta in 15th century Florence. And this one I made almost 20 years ago. And it's a lot worn out. And it's time to make a new one. It's time to make a better one with all my more advanced skills that I now have. So basically, I'm going to be making another one of these, and I'm going to be offering a workshop. It's a paid workshop, but it's a paid what you can workshop in September. We'll learn how to do the 2 kinds of finger loop braids you're going to need for this, and then we'll make it together step by step. And I'll show you how all the stitches you need, everything will be taught in the workshop. This is a beginner level thing. Anyone can do it. Yeah. Let me see. Question. And that's why I stick to historical camping now. Yeah. Hemp can be cheaper if you need an alternative. So I have not gone hemp shopping in the United States. And I don't know where you are. I'm assuming you must be in Europe, either the UK or Denmark, maybe. People are asking me where to get hemp in the US, and I don't know, because I go fabric shopping in Korea, where I can get hemp that's woven like it was in the Middle Ages. So yeah, hemp is great. Hemp is a fantastic summer fabric. So is Rami nettle cloth, an amazing summer fabric if you can get it. And that's why I stick to historical camping now. Yeah. How about natural versus Synthetic threads as far as the integrity of the material and also the friction of different materials. Yeah, this is not spraying. This is all finger loop braiding, different kinds of finger loop braids. So the center, it's also just been, it's had the hell out abused at it. But the center struts, the main ones are broad laces of 7 bows, like the ones I've just been doing, just out of silk, thin silk instead of broad, broad yarn. And then there's other kinds, a whole bunch of different other kinds of braids in there. So yeah, it's funny how you can create something that looks like spraying that isn't. This is simpler than spraying. It's easier to put together, actually, I think anyway. Synthetic threads. So guys, synthetic threads, there's a problem with synthetic threads and there's a benefit to synthetic threads. Synthetic threads will, if you try to sew with them, they will cut into your skin if you ever try to snap them using your fingers, right? So you could actually cut yourself. Synthetic threads will not shrink. And that could be good or that could be bad. So if you launder, for instance, if you launder your linen kamicha, there, even if you pre-wash it, there can still be just some slight shrinkage if you launder it again, like I do in a washing machine. I'm delicate. A natural thread like silk or linen will shrink along with it. The synthetic won't shrink with it. So there could be some interesting effects there. But mostly my objection to synthetic threads is that they're destructive to the environment. To even make them is super destructive, and they have a huge environmental footprint. So I object to them from that perspective. Also, having the synthetic threads in your sleeve cuffs and whatnot, that's still likely to catch on fire and do the fire thing. So yeah, so, I mean, for certain, polyester thread, it never breaks. It lasts forever. I can't argue with that. That's true. You know, silk and linen will eventually wear away and you will have to replace them much more often than you would a synthetic thread. So, you know, but it also, my experience is that polyester thread doesn't have the same kind of natural elasticity that linen and silk thread does. And so that can actually work against you, especially if you've made really tight seams. Just my experience. Oh, Denmark. Okay, I thought maybe you were in Denmark. Cool. Trying to find hemp in the US is hard since it has cannabis in its scientific name. Yeah, I kind of assumed that would be the case. Okay, everyone. Well, it is getting dark here, and the overhead lights do scary things to me and make me look like an old hag. So I'm not going to turn those on. Are there any final questions, everyone? I would like to thank you all for joining me for this somewhat abbreviated medieval sewing party. I will be doing medieval sewing parties from Penzic. I will be doing medieval story time from Penzic. I'll be live streaming adventures, and I'm also plan on doing some laundry experiments based on the knowledge I've gleaned from the Ménagier de Paris, the medieval home companion. So we'll be fermenting urine, and I'll be trying it out on some grease stains as the Ménagier suggests I should. And we'll be doing other experimentation as well. We'll be doing the medieval living history, medieval immersion workshop, so you can participate from the comfort of wherever you are. It'll be an interactive workshop. I'll give phrases and provide suggestions on how to rephrase things in a more courtly fashion. I'll be showing you my setup, how things are set up, like how I'll be actually streaming my setup process, and then I will actually give you a tour of the finished glamping setup. And of course, many of my dance classes I will be live streaming as well. So I hope you all can join me for any or all of that. I'd like to thank my patrons and my channel members. As always, thank you so much for supporting my work in a very tangible and financial way. All of those of you who've bought super thanks or super chats, really appreciate you. And I appreciate all of you who just participate, ask questions, share your own knowledge, hit the thumbs up, and are just part of my growing community. Really appreciate you all. Yeah, thank you, Raven. I hope and of course, if you are at Penzic, please come to my classes or my ball. Seek me out in my encampment. I love to actually meet you all face to face so that I have a face to go with all of these wonderful names. Yeah, very excited. Okay. So yeah, have a happy Sunday. Yeah, I think everyone's in Sunday at this point, or most of you are in Sunday at this point. Have a happy rest of your weekend, guys. Until then, stay creative.